You and your wife stick out like sore thumbs.
Today we're celebrating the 30th anniversary party for the prime contractor company. Bob, the department head at the prime contractor company, saw right through me in this out-of-place atmosphere and relentlessly mocked me. As I, being timid, couldn't talk back and remained silent, my wife Hazel, standing right beside me, grabbed Bob by the chest and confronted him aggressively. Hazel boasts, undeterred, while Bob continues to look down on us, as I worry that Hazel, infuriated by Bob's attitude, might do something outrageous. She pulled out an envelope from her bag. Bob had been smug without even looking inside. But the next day, he completely changed his demeanor and kept apologizing to us. Afterward, when Bob realized who I really was, he looked utterly deflated, as if all his strength had drained away, and seemed so disheartened that a gust of wind could have blown him away. It's true what they say about the right person for the right job. I realized that things can change significantly depending on one's position. My name is Ray Charles, though ironically, despite my name suggesting sunlight, I've always preferred a role behind the scenes. At 48, I find myself in a position far from that world, running a company, having married Hazel, and since her family owns the business, I ended up joining her family's company. The company I took over as CEO mainly handles interior construction as a subcontractor. Being the head of a family-owned business that's been around for over 50 years was a heavy load to bear, and I felt it was more than I could match. But I stepped up to meet the expectations from my father-in-law. Since becoming CEO, I've been successfully expanding our branches, striving for management gets well loved as community-focused, and fighting hard every day, having many long-term business relationships, taking over this company that has been in my wife's family since her grandfather. I sometimes felt overwhelmed by the weight of carrying both the family and the company's history. Yet, being trusted by many businesses and playing an essential, behind-the-scenes role has given me a sense of fulfillment and pride in my work. Our main client, a construction company, has a large contract volume and a strong relationship with us. Since the early days of the construction company's inception, they've been using our services as a subcontractor, fostering a comrades-in-arms relationship where we've been helping each other out. That's a well-known big corporation with numerous companies under its umbrella, expanding its business not only statewide but also venturing beyond state borders. The company name, often heard in TV commercials, is well known, and I doubt there is a local who hasn't heard of it. I've heard that Mr. Norman Rockwell, who was a division head at our headquarters, had a long friendship with my wife's grandfather, the founder, and they were close friends. Now, with Norman retiring, a younger employee from within has been promoted to take over. His name is Bob Brown. At 38, he's skilled enough to be a division head at a major construction company. At first, I thought he must be competent and came with high expectations.
Ray, I'll be in charge from now on. So let's keep up the good work, okay?
I felt uneasy about Bob's overly casual approach. But since he was the manager of a long-standing business partner, I suppressed my feelings and didn't object. However, that might have been a mistake. Bob's attitude became increasingly arrogant, and before I knew it, he started talking down to me, giving orders.
Hey Ray, about that estimate from the other day, that just won't do. We've been working together for a long time, right? So you get it, don't you?
His attitude of pushing unreasonable demands and easily dismissing our requests was infuriating. With Norman gone, I had no one to consult, and I could only offer small resistance without upsetting Bob too much.
Huh? Who do you think you're talking to? Don't get cocky. We're using your company as a subcontractor. Remember that.
I was disgusted by Bob's arrogant attitude of looking down on subcontractors just because he's the prime contractor, and I found myself wanting to cut ties and start fresh if possible. Then, a major ordering mistake was discovered in a public project undertaken by the prime contractor company, leading to a huge loss for my company. The prime construction company suffered significant damages, but as a subcontractor, my company avoided losses by allocating resources elsewhere. Feeling relieved that we managed to get by, I was then bombarded with an enormous complaint from an infuriated Bob.
Hey, what are you going to do about this? We've taken a huge loss on the public project we undertook together. How are you planning to take responsibility?
I mean, our company was able to avoid losses through other contracts. So technically, it shouldn't have resulted in a big loss for either of us.
That's not what I'm talking about.
Upon reviewing the construction estimate again, I noticed Bob's name as the person in charge, and there were revisions made to the amount received for the public project. But there are many inconsistencies in the written details. There were surprising additional budgets scattered throughout, making me suspect embezzlement. Isn't this quite different from the original plan to begin with? There's no way to handle this.
Cut it out. This is gonna make me look bad. Your company needs to take responsibility and cover the losses.
Bob, raising his voice, blurted out these one-sided demands and hung up abruptly. Fed up with Bob's tyrannical behavior, I reached my breaking point and consulted Hazel.
Well, but the company has been a partner since my grandfather's time, and things might return to normal once Bob's gone.
With a sigh and a troubled expression, Hazel's words left me sighing too, enduring the situation, thinking it's just for now. Mistakes caused by Bob kept surfacing, and every time I tried to clarify, somehow the blame was twisted to fall on me, with no ground gained in discussions. Then, one day after such continued occurrences, I was invited to that construction company's anniversary party. I was invited to the event not by Bob, but by an acquaintance. The company was reaching a major milestone with its 30th anniversary, and it seemed like they were planning to overhaul the board of directors, including the CEO. With a change in leadership, the company's policies are bound to change too. That would likely mean the end of my troubles with Bob. With that hope, Hazel and I headed to the party venue. The place, filled with branch managers and other executives from various regions, was wrapped in an extravagant atmosphere, making me, feeling out of place, shrink back while I was nervously looking around. Bob, acting like he owned the place, approached me. Seeing me acting suspiciously nervous, he started berating me from a position of superiority.
Why is a mere subcontractor like you even here? Do you realize how important today's party is?
Hazel, fed up with Bob's arrogant attitude, confronted him head-on.
Excuse me, who do you think you are? Today's party is to celebrate the hard work of the employees, not for you to act all high and mighty.
So Hazel, who despises dishonesty, Bob, who does nothing but make mistakes, must have been an irritating sight. Trying to calm down Hazel, who was on the verge of exploding, sent shivers down my spine. Despite the situation, Bob continued his arrogant demeanor, looking down on us.
Just the empty talk of people who've only done menial work. You and your wife are out of place here. It'd be better for you to leave, for your own good.
After downing his glass in one gulp, Bob, with a smirk, handed it to me as if ordering me to clean up. What's this?
You're clueless, huh? It's my kindness to give you a job for today since you're so useless.
Hazel, furious at Bob's remarks, brushed aside my restraining arm and grabbed him by the collar. In this hopeless situation, all I could do was stand there, knees trembling in despair. I fought Hazel, driven by anger, was about to land a heavy blow on Bob's face and hurried to stop her. But in the next moment, Hazel pulled a brown envelope used at the company from her handbag and thrust it towards Bob's face instead of her fist.
Call the president. I'm terminating contracts with all 70 subsidiary companies.
Hazel spoke unexpectedly calmly, but her face was as furious as if she were wearing a demonic mask. After forcefully pushing away Bob, who she had grabbed by the chest, Hazel pulled me by the arm and headed outside. Next to Hazel, taking deep breaths outside, I called the person who had invited me to today's anniversary party. Tom, sorry, but we've run into a bit of trouble and have to head back urgently.
Is that so? I don't know what happened, but that's really too bad. I was hoping we could catch up after such a long time.
I'm really sorry, especially on such an important day. The one expressing regret over the phone was my friend, Tom Hanks. Tom is an important figure in my life, a best friend since our school days, with whom I've shared various experiences. I knew Tom was also planning to attend today's anniversary party. However, it was inevitable. Just Bob's presence was enough to make Hazel's anger boil over instantly like a rapid water heater. The next morning, before the employees even arrived, Bob, looking frantic, suddenly barged into my company.
I'm terribly sorry for what happened.
Seeing an unexpected apology out of the blue was a first in my life, and I was so shocked that I was left speechless, frozen in place. Next to me, Hazel, who had been watching, spit out her coffee and burst into a fit of laughter.
What is that? Don't make me laugh so early in the morning. I'm laughing so hard it hurts.
While Hazel was laughing her heart out, I, bewildered by Bob's bizarre actions, was taken aback and couldn't grasp what was happening. What in the world is going on here?
That is,
While apologizing with his face down, Bob started to explain what had happened after we left yesterday. His words, shaky and tearful, were hard to catch, but it seemed that right after driving us away, Bob was nearly fired on the spot by the furious new president. Did you, by any chance, give yesterday's envelope to the new president?
yes. I didn't realize that the contents of that envelope were so crucial to the company.
As Bob remained frozen on his knees on the floor, Hazel began to explain the nature of our business. Originally, the founder of the construction company Bob worked for was an employee of this subcontracting company started by Hazel's grandfather. Because of this long-standing relationship, my company has been taking on almost all of the necessary tasks for the construction company's projects as a prime contractor. When the construction company was just starting, it was able to continue operations smoothly thanks to Hazel's grandfather, who, as a subcontractor, took on the complicated associated construction work for a wide range of jobs, from private sector requests to public projects. Over these 30 years, as the backbone of that construction company, we have continued to take on even the somewhat troublesome projects as a subcontractor. When Bob, learning for the first time of our true standing, looked up, his face was twisted in shock, going beyond pale to completely white. To Bob, who seemed to be fading away from this world, Hazel delivered the final blow with a single remark.
By the way, the new president, Tom, he's my husband's best friend.
What? Really?
Trembling and fearful, Bob looked at me as I gave a small nod. Tom and I go way back. He's what you'd call a best friend. We came to the party yesterday to celebrate Tom's new presidency. Actually, he was the one who sent the invitation. Tom and I had been close since our school days and joined the same company as adults. The reason I was able to push myself to excel, competing as rivals with fellow new hires, was because my counterpart was Tom. I still remember those times as fun and meaningful. I never expected that the company Tom chose when he changed jobs through career fair would be this construction company. After I took over Hazel's company, Tom piled up many achievements and, as a result, was promoted to the new president.
So Tom, our president, is…
Seemingly realizing something, Bob slumped deeply, looking as if his soul had left his body, while Hazel was still ruling with laughter. Bob was sinking into despair like he was about to turn into ashes. Amid this chaos, Tom unexpectedly showed up. He had heard about Bob's meltdown and came over, looking surprised and troubled at the sight of Bob cowering on the floor. With a small sigh, he patted my shoulder and gave a troubled smile.
It's been a while. Never thought we'd meet again under these circumstances.
Tom.
Bob, fearfully turning his face towards Tom. Then saw Tom's expression suddenly stiffen, his brows furrowing deeply as he glared sharply at Bob. Trembling with fear, Bob averted his gaze, sitting rigidly on the floor, lost for words.
Ray, I'm really sorry about all this. I've heard about what happened. Hazel, too, you've been trouble.
Honestly, it was a huge hassle, but well, I got a good laugh out of it this morning, so I guess I'm over it now.
Hazel, looking relieved, smiled at Tom.
Speaking of which, I heard Bob admires someone.
Yes, but I haven't met him yet.
It's someone you know very well.
I didn't understand what Tom was implying, but it was clear Bob was utterly confused.
He's the kind of person who leaves a legend behind during his college years. I can't think of who it might be, though.
Tom sighed softly and pointed at me.
The person you admire is actually him.
What? Huh? What?
Bob had occasionally talked about someone he admired, But I, not paying much attention, had completely forgotten about it. This person had started a business during college, received requests from many companies for sales and corporate strategies, and made astonishing profits. His name became famous on its own, and before he knew it, he's become known as a legendary figure not only among current students, but also among alumni who graduated before him. Simply put, I was that person during my college years. However, I believe these achievements wouldn't have been possible without the help of Norman, the former sales director of the prime contractor before Bob. That's why I didn't talk about it much myself. Yet, despite it being 10 years since I graduated, Bob had heard some buzz and seemed to have developed an admiration for me. But having heard the name before, Bob didn't realize it was me because my last name had changed when I got married and became a son-in-law.
Is that really true?
Well, yes, it is. Upon learning my true identity, Bob suddenly started crying and extended his hand for a handshake. Seeing him like this, Hazel, for some reason, was smugly grinning. A stunned Bob stared at me, forgetting to blink, feeling a chill down my spine from his gaze. I was creeped out. What is it?
No, just. You and Tom are really close, huh?
Well, yeah. He and I are like comrades in arms.
Tom laughed playfully, and Bob nodded slightly, though he seemed unconvinced, tilting his head. The term comrades in arms must have been confusing for him. I added a little to Tom's story. Tom and I were not only old friends, but he also supported me in the business, which eventually led to me being considered a legendary figure. My achievements are inseparable from Tom's presence. It was embarrassing to say it myself, but Tom is more than just a precious friend to me.
Well, that's the gist of it. Simply put, I've been the storyteller of his feats, watching from the best seat in the house.
It's not just that, right? I don't know anyone as capable as Tom.
When it comes to my stories, Hazel tends to boast as if they were her own. Even Hazel seemed to respect Tom greatly, talking proudly as if it was about herself.
After all, you were the consultant for that prime contractor company, weren't you?
Wait, could it be? The person who's been the key player in turning around the company, as I've heard through the grapevine.
I think that was me. After taking over Hazel's company and doubling its profits, recognized for my achievements, I was also managing the consulting for the prime contractor company, recommended by Norman. Knowing Tom was already making strides as an executive at the prime contractor company, I worked with him, reminiscing about our college days, and we successfully tripled the company's scale. And with Tom's presidency, it was decided that my company would take over the subcontracting for all 70 group companies, though it meant working with subcontractors and affiliated businesses. Our profits were incomparable to before. Having heard my story, Bob seemed to understand, dropping his shoulders and staring off into the distance as if lost in thought. As a result, Bob ended up making enemies not only of me, but also of Hazel, sitting as the chairman of the subcontracting company. Consequently, Bob, far from just losing his managerial position, could no longer work at the company and was put on immediate suspension, with his termination decided after a holding period. Feeling sorry for Bob, who was completely outmatched, I decided to show a bit of mercy by introducing him to a subcontracting company benefiting from our recent business expansion. This company, too, was facing a labor shortage and was thrilled to acquire Bob as a workforce. Managing the 70 companies in our group was challenging, but within a year, the business began to yield results. Just as the new ventures were taking off smoothly, Bob unexpectedly showed up at my company.
It's been a while. Thanks for everything.
Bob, now accustomed to working both in sales and on site as a subcontractor, had completely changed from his former arrogant demeanor to being surprisingly humble. His flattering sales pitch, born out of his humble approach, seemed to be well received, and according to the president of the subcontracting company, Bob's exceptional sales skills were significantly contributing to the company. After Tom and I had successfully stabilized the group business, I received a call from Norman, inviting me out for a meal. Out of the blue and serious, he made an unexpected proposal.
I'm thinking of starting something new. How about joining me?
I was delighted by the invitation from Norman, whom I respected, and quickly joined the new venture. However, when he mentioned needing a young salesman, Bob's face popped into my mind. Knowing it's a long shot, I reached out to the subcontracting company, and they happily agreed to let him go, as a new recruit had rapidly improved under Bob's training.
Can I really work with you, Ray?
Bob asked, tears of joy in his eyes, as we shook hands firmly. There's a saying about the right person for the right place, and it seems Bob shines brightest beside those he admires. Of course, with Norman, and thanks to Bob's efforts, the new venture quickly took off, and orders kept increasing smoothly. Bob's gaze, sparkling with admiration, felt dazzling. But it reminded me that I must also strive to live up to his expectations. Leading people is not easy. But thanks to Bob, I've been made to think about how others perceive me. And it feels like I've grown a bit more.